Now that we've styled our list items, what we're going to be doing is taking care of these section tags that we have here. Remember, in our source code, if we look at it, we can see that we have 3 sections, and these 3 sections are intended to be right across the top over here. 1, 2, 3. Now, one of the easiest ways that we can do that is to just float them all on the left. And it's very simple to do. First of all, in terms of defining exactly how big these sections will be, well, let's think about it logically. If my container is 960, we can very easily divide that into 3 and think of 320 pixels for each of these sections. So, one of the ways that we can do that, since we have all of these sections doing the same thing, any section tag that I am addressing will have this universal little bit of code addressing how it's going to look. So let's come to the CSS styles. We'll go to the new CSS rule. And what we're going to be doing is addressing the tag known as the section tag. Spell it properly. And once you've got that ready, you can click OK. At this point, a couple of basic things. First of all, we go to the category called box, and we're going to float them all to the left. The next thing I want to do is to define a very specific 320 pixels for the width. Remember, that will add up beautifully to 960, giving us 3 even elements. The only other thing I may want to do is to put a little bit of padding on the top and the bottom. Remember, it's padding on the left and the right that's going to affect the width of this. Since the height will be defined by whatever is inside of it, I'm not really concerned about putting padding on the top and bottom. But just to add a little bit of space, let's do this. 20 pixels on top, 20 pixels on the bottom. The only other thing I want to be doing is just setting the background color for this element. Now, there's a number of different colors we could choose, but I think I'll give you one directly. So put in the pound symbol, and we'll say E6, E6, E6. If you press apply, and then OK, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Here we have 3 sections now, all directly side by side. They're evenly spaced, and they have exactly the same amount of information that we do right here. Okay, the next thing what we're going to be doing is addressing the article and the aside tags. In our code, we've got article right here and an aside right here. Given that we may have many different articles, I think we can take the time to just give this particular article an ID. And I'm going to call this ID main. And we'll call it that in terms of the main article, the main content area. Once we've got that in place, we can now go to our CSS styles, and let's come in here and we'll add a very specific compound based on our selection. And this time, it's not just main that I want to be dealing with. I could even write it like this. I could say any article that has the ID of main. So I'll just write it like that, even with no space there. That should work out just fine. We'll click OK. And let's see what we can do to define what that's going to look like. First of all, we'll go to the width, and we'll give it a value of 640. It's half of, or actually twice, what each of those sections were. Now once we've got that done, we're going to float this on the left as well. We can also give it some padding, 20 on the top, 20 on the bottom, and that'll look just great. And I'm even going to give it a background color, but since I've got a dark gray here, I think I'm just going to make it white so that we can read the elements in the article very nicely. Now if we press apply, we take a look at what that looks like. You can see that, the aside is right next to it. It's squished in there. But the footer is having some problem. But again, not to worry about the footer, simply because when we do get to it, we're going to be addressing how we can get it to clear the elements above it. Okay, so at the moment, I don't even have to worry about the article clearing what's on top, simply because even if it is floating, it's not going to have enough space to fit in the area that's available over here. So that should work out just fine. However, if you do want to be extra careful, you can also go to the category called block and tell the article to clear both so that it's always underneath these sections for no matter what. So I'm going to click OK since I'm happy with the way that looks. Before we move forward, let's just take care of the aside really quickly. Now I don't necessarily need a ID for the aside. I'm just going to come in here and target the aside tag itself. There we go. Click OK. And the thing we're going to be doing with the aside is just going to the category called block. We'll make it 320 pixels. We'll float it on the left. It should still fit nicely in the space that's available. It's actually not going to really do much. It's going to look pretty much the way it does right now. Let's give it a top and bottom of 20 pixels as well. And that's pretty much it. The reason being is because I'm going to leave the aside with the same background color as the wrapper. And the reason being is because if we had a different color, let me just click OK and I'll show you what I mean. If we had a different color, what would end up happening is that no matter what the text is in here, it would be cut off with that color, and then we'd have some extra space here that I don't want. So by leaving it with no color, you end up taking the background of the wrapper, and that'll make it look like it's longer than it actually is. So when we come back, we'll take care of the footer, and we'll actually add in some sections inside here so that we can have some extra content if we need it.